Ages ago, in New Zealand, two creatures lived in a lake beside the Pacific Ocean. One creature grew tired of the limited lake and despised the strip of land barring it from the vast ocean. When the creature's desire became too great, it hurled itself towards the land blocking the limitless ocean. Risking its death for freedom, the creature struck the land barrier and broke through. The creature swam into the deep blue Pacific Ocean, while the second creature pursued. But the newly introduced ocean brought currents that beached the second creature. The tides did not help unstuck the creature, and it died generations later. However, the creature's soul became a bird that flew to a nearby mountain. These creatures were the Maori's dragons, the tanefa, and this is Legends from the Pacific. Aloha, and thank you for joining us. This is Legends from the Pacific, episode 61, The Maori's Dragons, the Tanefa. I am Kamuala Kaneshiro, a native Hawaiian professional writer, speaker, and Comic-Con panelist with extensive film and television experience. I study mythology, I've encountered unusual things, and I'm a geek. You can support us by getting 2 or 3 of your friends to listen to our show. This simple request goes a long way in helping us grow our show. Mahalo nui loa to all of you who supported our first book's Kickstarter. I appreciate how many of you support our show. For the record, I will not be getting any of the funds raised. All funds raised will go to our book and audiobook. I'll be sending at least a monthly update, so please keep an eye for these emails. Once again, thank you so much for supporting our show. A program update. Apple Podcast has been updating things on their end, which caused all podcasts to be released later than usual. This might have affected non-Apple users because your podcast player might have been getting their podcast through Apple Podcasts. Since it's questionable on how long Apple will take to process new episodes, our new episodes will be available before Monday Hawaii time, GMT minus 10 hours. Speaking of new episodes, mahalo to all of you who wrote in thanking me for last week's Bruce Lee episode. He did his best for equality. Later in this episode, your featured song and Hawaiian word, but now, a personal difficulty. Okay, have you ever been taught a name or word and later it became difficult for you to unlearn it or pronounce it differently? Well, this happened with me. You see, growing up, I had a friend whose family clearly told me their last name was pronounced Maori, like the Pacific race. I wasn't one to argue with my elders, so I accepted this. Since then, I've had difficulty pronouncing Maori, which was their last name, and Maori. While I'm as detailed-oriented as possible, this and other mispronunciations may slip by. So I appreciate you bearing with me, and thank you for your understanding. Now, the tanefa. There's a lot of similarities between Hawaii's mo'o and the Maori's tanefa. Both live in or near water. They can also be fierce man-eating creatures, guardians of an area or people. While some claim tanefa sightings were actually rare saltwater crocodile appearances, it is believed a tanefa could be male or female and were various shapes and sizes. Most were as big as whales. Some looked like dragons, serpents, or geckos. Others were shapeshifters or sharks. This is interesting since tanefa is very close to the word other Pacific cultures use for shark. Something else about the tanefa is that people who interacted with a tanefa may become a tanefa when they die. I'm chalking this one up to a side effect from being exposed to the tanefa's magic. The following is Legends from the Pacific original story. It is based on cultural records. In days past, a beautiful teenager went with her younger sisters to enjoy a swim in a stream. Near the stream, they encountered a tanefa. The tanefa was enchanted by the attractive teenager and planned on eating her sisters as well as their village. The teenager pled for the monster to spare them. The tanefa said, "I'll agree if you be my wife." She agreed, bid farewell to her sisters, and the tanefa took his new bride to his lair. Time passed. The teenager became a woman and gave birth to 6 children. 3 were tanefa, and 3 were mortal. Her tanefa husband favored his tanefa offspring, but shunned the mortals. The woman shared the stories of her people with her mortal offspring, along with the art of warfare. When the mortal children were old enough, they realized how unfair their tanefa father was to their mother and made a plan to escape. When the time was right, they killed their tanefa brothers and father. Freed from her unjust husband, the woman wept and thanked her sons. She took them back to her village, where they were treated like heroes for killing a dangerous tanefa. Don't forget to claim your free unaired bonus episode, Hawaii's Faceless Ghost, Mujina, by joining our email list. Also, send me your unusual Pacific encounters via our feedback link in our show notes so I may share them on future episodes. Today, the tanefa was mentioned during the beloved movie Once Were Warriors. The tanefa is a legendary creature in the card game Magic the Gathering. And recently, the New Zealand settlement Opinoni had their tanefa interviewed by Guy Williams. I wonder how many listeners got that reference. Returning to the tanefa from our opening story, it is believed the tanefa are responsible for several New Zealand landmarks. The tanefa's body became a rock formation. Its soul, that became a bird, was called Tikeo and flew to Mount Victoria. The Maori's name for Mount Victoria is Tangi Tikeo, which translates to Weeping of Tikeo. As for the lake that became a harbor, this is how New Zealand's Wellington Harbor came to be. The Maoris call it Te Whanganui-a Tara, or the Great Harbor of Tara, who's the son of a Polynesian explorer. But that's a story for another time. If you like what you heard, please give us a rating and share Legends from the Pacific with your friends and family. I'd really appreciate it. A big mahalo nui loa to our Patreon supporter, Emma Duce. Thank you very much for your support, Emma. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. I didn't receive your follow-up email. You too can enjoy brand new unaired monthly stories exclusively on Patreon, as well as other nifty benefits. So become a Legends from the Pacific Patreon supporter today. Our theme song is Mystery by Tavana, courtesy of High Sessions. Sound effects are by Sound Effects Factory. Our music coordinator is Matt Duffy, aka DJ Triple Bypass. Links and show notes can be found on our website, legendsfromthepacific.com, including a link to your featured song, which is I Remember by Sudden Rush, courtesy of High Sessions. Legends from the Pacific was written, produced, and edited by me, Kamuela Kaneshiro. I also wrote our original stories. Your featured Hawaiian word is mano. Mano is Hawaiian for shark. An example of mano is Jaws was a movie about a big mano that terrorized a town. Once again, mano is Hawaiian for shark. Thank you once again for listening. Mahalo and a hui ho.